chapter, with verse 4 of chapter 2, and see how we get on with this. Verse 4 says, well, let me just say this. Gomer is the mother of the 3 children, and she plays the part of Israel in the metaphor. And then they have 3 children, which we're going to see today Hosea is not the father of. I believe, in my opinion, that's what it says. We're going to see that. And he went through those first couple of verses, speaking of Israel, the way he ended up, he said, I'm going to strip her naked. And what he's talking about, he's going to take everything, using through the use of Assyria, their enemy. They're going to take everything that Israel has. Who is Israel now? What's another name for Israel? The Northern Kingdom. So what he's going to, through Assyria, he's going to take everything that they have, and what he's going to leave is something that looks like a dry and parched land. And then he gets to verse 4, and here's what he says in verse 4. He says, I will not show my love to her children, because they are the children of adultery. Gomer plays the part of Israel. She's the mother. She plays the part of Israel. Her children, these 3 children, play the part of the Israelites. He says in verse 4, I will not show my love to her children, because they are the children of adultery. God is applying the sins of the nation, Israel, to the individuals, her children, who comprise the children of adultery. Again, the metaphor in which the children are the offspring of Gomer, and her sexual immorality is the metaphor for the spiritual immorality of Israel. All right, that's the same thing I've been saying. She is a sexually immoral woman, an adulterous woman. She plays the part of Israel, which is a spiritually adulterous nation, the Northern Kingdom. What they have given rise to is an attack directly on God and by the 21st century New Testament Christians. We do the same thing. We're going to see that everything that Israel was doing, we're doing as a culture in our country today. In the case of creation, it is not that God didn't do it. He didn't create it. It is that we have put him in a place where he is not needed. It just doesn't matter. We don't care. As a culture, not as you individually, not as people you know, but as a culture, God is not recognized as the creator of everything. What do we believe? I mean, not what we believe. What is the world, our cultural belief? They believe evolution, and they believe it wholeheartedly. Why? Because science says it. We put God in a place where he's just simply not needed in the process. In the case of family values, the Israelites were involved with the Canaanite gods, and they physically sacrificed their children in the fire in the bronze statue of Moloch. They physically had child sacrifices. What do? We do abortion. as a culture, it is not what you believe. That's not what I'm saying. As a culture, what our laws say. I mean, you look at every election, national election, and you have a division on adultery. I mean, on abortion. So in our culture, we promote. In our culture, we promote homosexuality everywhere. You cannot miss it on TV. You cannot miss it in our legal systems. You cannot miss it in all the emphasis and rhetoric and stuff you see in the news about same-sex marriages and transgender modifications. We condone that. Not you, not me, but as a culture, we condone that. If you don't believe me, go out to California and see how the bathrooms are out there. You know, and what's going to be here too. There's no question about it. And if you think that I'm picking just the big ones, like homosexuality, seems like it always comes up when I'm up here talking. Creation always comes up when I'm talking. I'd pick something that's a little more down to earth. How about plain old vanilla living in sin? That's not so big. You know what I mean when I say living in sin? Boy, I thought it would jump right out at you. It's two people that aren't married that are shacking up. That is totally acceptable everywhere. Many people have become serious about each other, and rather than get married, they or show any kind of moral stamina, they just move in together. Possibly as a convenience in case things don't work out, or maybe there was never any intention of permanence at all. But the point is, it's something that is totally and completely accepted by our culture. Not by you, I said that before you got here, not by you, not by me, but as a culture. It's everywhere. All right? Well, it's just one of the things that occurs. All of these things are not accepted out of tolerance. They are examples born out of spiritual immorality. You know, we say, that's the key word these days, tolerance, right? You hear tolerance about all these things. But from my standpoint, it doesn't have to do with tolerance. It has to do with spiritual immorality and a straight rejection of godly values. We already talked about homosexuality and putting God in a place where he's not needed in creation and all those sorts of things. But Scripture has not changed. Israel rejected it, and they were judged. The United States has rejected it, or so it would seem. And I don't know what that means for us. Okay, so nevertheless, we're in that place where we look a lot like Israel. Oh, that's right. That's what it was. You know, we have come to a point in our society, not you, not me necessarily, but as a culture, homosexuality is completely tolerated in our country. But it's almost more than tolerance. It's almost like condoning it. I mean, it's like in our legal system, everything has to be equal among everybody, every kind of everything. So it's more than tolerance. It's a form of condoning it. All right. So verse 5 says this: the mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. So we're talking about Gomer doing something, but it really means Israel. But Gomer has conceived 3 children. Now, tell me if that applies to this. What I said was, initially we talked about whether Hosea was the father of the 3 children. What did we decide? Without this verse, we talked about it the first week. Do y'all remember what we decided?
We wouldn't have been surprised
If they weren't.
Yeah.
And I don't think they are. Look at verse 5. Initially, we talked about whether they were Hosea was the father of the 3 children. I think here we're getting pretty good idea that he is not their father. It says here, the mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. So it sounds like she's had these 3 children without Hosea being involved. That's the way it reads to me. Gomer has decided to go after other men, her lovers, who can provide the necessities of life. Did I have to read? Yeah, the rest of that verse 5 says, she said, I will go after my lovers who will give me my food and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my drink. So she's decided to go after other men who are her lovers, who can provide the necessities of life, and they can provide the luxuries of life better than Hosea can. In the metaphor, Israel turns out to be going after other gods because they can provide better than God can. What we have in this verse is 2 sins very insulting to God. I wrote them down last week. One is the sin of presumption. One is ingratitude. Presumption in that the idolatry can do it better than God can do it. And ingratitude is a rejection of what God has done for Israel in the form of other gods. Israel chose other men. In the metaphor, Israel chose other gods. Okay. Has the United States done the same thing? Have we chosen other gods? And I don't mean necessarily in the form of traditional idolatry. You know, Israel was doing traditional idolatry. They had Molech, they had Baal, they had all kinds of different gods that they were turning to. How does the United States fit into that? You don't hear much about God on the news, anywhere. Is there anything there? Are we still a godly nation? As a culture, not you, not me, but as a culture, do we act as if we need God? I think you're right. I think we don't. Verse 6. Therefore, I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so that she cannot find her way. It's an interesting verse. While the hedge of thorns is a form of protection by God, it is more a guarantee of the direction she will go. You know, she can't go anywhere except within this hedge of thorn bushes. If it's circular, she can't go anywhere. If there are 2 lines of thorn bushes, then she has to stay between them. So God is providing that she cannot go where she wants to go. She has to go where he wants her to go. While Gomer was looking to find a way to her lovers, or for Israel a way to other gods, she will not be able to go there. What did it say there? It said, I will wall her in so that she cannot find her way. When we get to verse 16, we will start a section on the new covenant or the restoration of the old one. Verse 17 says that all idolatry will be gone. See, right now it's alive and well in Israel. Not today, but I mean during the time of Hosea. It's alive and well. That's what it's all about, is idolatry. But there's going to come a time in verse 17, we're going to see it, where he's going to say it's not going to exist. Today, Now I'm talking about today. All traditional idolatry is gone, but they're guilty of other things. Okay, but traditional idolatry does not exist. They don't have Baal. They don't have Moloch. They don't have those wooden things sticking up on their mantles that they worship. It's gone today. But here in verse 6, we may search she may search for her lovers or other gods, but she will not be able to find them because of Yahweh's discipline. Remember, we talked about discipline. Discipline is punishment with a purpose, and that purpose is to get them to return to Him. So that's what we're talking about. Verse 7 says, she will chase after her lovers but not catch them. She will look for them but not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now. You got to read that verse carefully. So Yahweh builds the hedge. It will have the desired effect of deterrence from idolatry. She will be frustrated and in despair. For whatever reason, age or appearance, she cannot find the lovers. They may just say, well, not interested in you anymore. But whatever the reason, she can't find them. Here's the part I had to read and study. For God says to Himself, see, I couldn't understand this. He says this to Himself in verse 7, the last half of it. Then she will say, actually, God is saying, then she will say, He's saying that to Himself, then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now. But she didn't do that. We're going to see that in verse 8. He's going to say that. Hosea says to Gomer, Yahweh says it for Israel. But she still cannot recognize Yahweh. Her defiance comes in verse 8. So let's look at verse 8. Verse 8 says, that's my interpretation of that, okay? Verse 8 says, she has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold, which they used for Baal. In her act of defiance of knowing what is best for herself and choosing Baal over Yahweh, she still will not acknowledge Yahweh. See, you put that with verse 7. It can't be what she said. It's what God was saying. Surely she will say. He's saying that to Himself. When she sees all this stuff, surely she will come to her senses. Okay? Verse 8 says she didn't. So Gomer takes blessings provided by Yahweh and gives them to Baal. Gomer, takes blessings provided by Yahweh and gives them to Baal. Israel, distributed the wealth to false gods, Baal and others. Okay, in the metaphor. Gomer does one thing, Israel does the same. Both Gomer and Israel are including necessities of life and luxuries in their contributions to their religious gods. So they're just not giving Him any credit for anything. Let's see what happens if we keep going. Verse 9. Therefore, I will take away my grain when it ripens. This is because she didn't. Okay. Therefore, he says, I will take away my grain when it ripens and my new wine when it is ready. I will take back my wool and my linen intended to cover her nakedness. Period. Intended to cover her nakedness. This is the second therefore. The first one was in verse 6. Because she has not acknowledged that Yahweh was the source of her luxuries and necessities, then what? The Mosaic law made agricultural prosperity dependent on loyal to the Lord. If you are loyal to the Lord, if you follow my ways and do I tell you, then you will prosper agriculturally. And God says, now, I'm going to take that away. That stuff he listed there, he's already listed once, indicating he gave it to him. Now he says, I'm going to take it away. How's he going to take it away? He's going to take it away with drought. He's going to take it away with infertile land, and he's going to take it away with war. Now, am I making that up? I'm not making that up. I can support that statement. He's going to take it away with drought, infertile land, and war. Look at Deuteronomy 28. Flip back over there. Deuteronomy 28. Verse 15 and 16. This is curses for disobedience as a paragraph heading. However, if you do not obey, the Lord your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I'm giving you today, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. In 16, the very first one of them is you will be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. And it goes on, and you flip over, go to verse 38, and it says, 38 through 40, it says, you will sow much seed in the field, but you will harvest little, because locusts will devour it. You will plant vineyards and cultivate them, but you will not drink the wine or gather the grapes, because worms will eat them. Verse 40, you will have olive trees throughout your country, but you will not use the oil, because the olives will drop off. Sounds like our garden, Jan. Sounds a lot like our garden. A lot like our garden. Okay, if you go over to Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26. Y'all have probably looked at this before, but we don't look at it very often. Leviticus 26, verses 3 through 5. If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands, I will send you rain in season, and the ground will yield its crops, and the trees of the field their fruit. Your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until planting, and you will eat all the food you want and live in the safety of your land. That is if you are obedient. It's got a nice ring to it. Flip over to verse 14. Verse 14 says, but, that but is a killer. But if you will not listen to me and carry out all of these commands, and if you reject my decrees and abhor my laws and fail to carry out all my commands and so violate my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will bring upon you sudden terror, wasting diseases and fever that will destroy your sight and drain away your life. You will plant seed in vain because your enemies will eat it. I didn't get to the part about war, but war is in there. Okay? That's what they have to look forward to. It should not be a surprise to them. It was written in the time of Moses. So with the statement, he will take away these things, God announces his intention to implement the covenant curses of Deuteronomy and Leviticus. That's what he's talking about. And it's not going to be a surprise to them. They know the law. They know what's there. That's what Hosea is telling them about. Again, they have the sin. They have sinned with presumption. That one right there. They've presumed on God. That was when they gave Baal the credit for what God did. That's what that was. They've got the sin of ingratitude. We know what that is. They have chosen Baal over Yahweh. They have sinned by reducing Yahweh to a footnote regarding creation and the need for him. They have chosen to worship the created rather than the creator. They have sacrificed their children in the furnaces of Molech. Were y'all in here we talked about? Talking about child sacrifice is one of the things that they were doing. That was a real eye-opener for me when I actually saw that in print in the Bible, because that's something we never talked about when I was growing up, when I was a young adult. Child sacrifice wasn't one of the things we talked about in church, but they were doing it. And God is judged the northern kingdom. They have prosperity beyond measure. I said that the first day. They had 3-car garages. The wealthy, they were extremely wealthy people. Not everybody, but even the poor had enough to eat, which is not the case in most of the times like this you read about in the Bible. America faces the same predicament. I mean, I see this all the way through here. We are guilty of the same sins they are. That list is there, and the stuff we talked about before you got in here. It's all here. Israel was judged. They were told they would be judged. Are we going to be judged in the same way? I think it's a possibility. Okay. Got something else for you here. Verse 10. Verse 10. So now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands. No one will take her out of my hands. The word for lewdness is it's neblutah. This is the only place in the Bible that this word for lewdness is used. And it refers to a blatant breach of the covenant. It means lewdness, but it's a special kind of lewdness. Missler gave me a list of things that applies to this. One of them is Achan's sin. Do y'all know about him? Achan? You ever heard of him? It's kind of interesting. We're going to look at that in one of the other verses. I'm not going to cover it now. Various sexual and acts, including fornication, incest, rape, adultery. So it's a collective term. It means all kinds of stuff all rolled into it. And that's the kind of lewdness that they're talking about here. Verse 11 says, I will stop all of her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, all her appointed feasts. That doesn't sound that bad. Except the thing is, under Jeroboam, like at least they were doing it. But under Jeroboam, who was the first king, remember him, first king of the northern kingdom? He kept all that stuff going, except it got changed. Under Jeroboam, they continued with the feast and the festivals, but they were only carnal indulgence of a degenerate Israel. They changed it. You say, we're still going to celebrate this feast, but they changed it to have these carnal indulgences built into them. Removing the fertility of Baal will eliminate any reason for praising Baal at Israel's sexually perverse festivals. So he says, I'm going to take those away. You took my festivals, I specified them in the law, told you how to do them. You've changed them, so I'm just going to take them away. They're empty, they have no purpose, I'm going to take them away. Verse 12 says, I will ruin her vines and her fig trees. Now we're getting serious. I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were pay from her lovers. I will make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. So this is all prophecy. It's happened in our. We look back and see that it's already happened, but at the time this Hosea was telling them this stuff, it hadn't happened yet. He said, "I'm going to ruin your vines. I'm going to ruin your fig trees." Uh, that was fulfilled with the Assyrian captivity when I wrote 722 right here. It was right there. It was fulfilled then. Everything was ruined, and that was God's way of punishing Israel. It was discipline. They saw it as punishment, but it was actually intended to be discipline. It was intended to call them back to Him. Verse 13 says, "I will punish her for the days she burned incense to the Baals. She decked herself with rings and jewelry and went after her lovers, but me she forgot." Israel made a complete who's Israel? What's another name for Israel? Northern Kingdom. Israel made a complete transition to the worship of Baal. Gomer decided herself, uh, Gomer decked herself out and went after her lovers. Israel and Gomer both forgot Yahweh. That's a hard thing to say you forgot something. We talked about forsaking something was intentional, but forgetting was accidental. I think it was accidental, but because it started out, and the further they went, this was hundreds of years that we're talking about between where Jeroboam became king all the way out to 722. Had a lot of time in there for things to go bad and get worse. And that's kind of what happened. Pretty soon, God just wasn't even in the mix. Verse 14 says, this is the third therefore, verse 14 says, "Therefore I am now going to allure." We've been talking about judgment up to now. Now we're going to talk about restoration. If this is not so beautiful, it makes your heart go thump, thump. I don't know what will. "Therefore I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the desert." Remember we talked about chapter 1. We had all that stuff about the bad stuff that had to do with the kids, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, you had verse 10 and 11 where he's giving them promises for the future. It's the same thing here. He's given them all of this stuff in chapter 2 of pointing out all of their failures in terms of worshiping Him. Then he says, "But, therefore, I'm going to allure her. I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her." Verse 14 to 23 are all expressing the goals of discipline, and it's called renewal. He's telling them there's a time. It's bad now. I've been predicting bad for you, but there's a time when it's going to be really good. I'm going to be calling you back, and you're going to come back. And this is what he starts with, verse 14. I'm going to allure her. You know what allure means? I looked it up. I want to know exactly what that word means. It means powerfully attract or charm. That's what he's going to do. That's what Gomer is going to do. What Hosea is going to do in the metaphor, what he's going to do to Gomer. I'm going to allure her. That is exciting. I had to regroup when I read that. I was thinking, God's saying that to Israel? Hosea is saying that to Gomer with the same intent for God towards Israel. He loves Israel. He never stopped. Although there was a time, I guess he did stop. He will lead her into the desert, he says here. A place of protection. It's a place, Hosea will lead Gomer into the desert. It's a place of protection, a place where they can be alone, a place where they can stop. He said he's going to lead her into the desert. Then it's spoken as Hosea would speak to Gomer, but it is Yahweh speaking to Israel. The covenant was fractured. It was not broken. If it was broken, this would have to be all new covenant stuff. It's not new covenant. It's restoration. He will speak. You know what that actually means? Speak tenderly to her. It literally means he will speak to her heart. Gomer should be thrilled. Gomer should be thrilled to have Hosea, a man, come to her with those kind of real feelings. Not the way men usually come to her, but the way Hosea came to her. And that's the way God is coming to Israel. He is calling them out in the same way. This is a metaphor for restoration after defeat. It's a new experience. Of complete dependence on God. It's a new experience of complete dependence on God, period. All right, verse 15 says this. There I will give her back her vineyards and will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. There will be singing as in the days of her youth, as in the day she came out of Egypt. Now, what's happened here is that it looks like complete restoration of the people in the land. What they get is life, hope, and happiness. That's what they get. Now, we leave God in the heat of our own desire and run from Him because we want so much to have our own way. Not you, not me, maybe you, maybe me. We run from God because we want to do things our way. But just when we thought we got away from Him, He took the shortcut and was waiting for us at the crossroads. I love Henry Missler. That's what he said. Just when we thought we got away from Him, He had taken a shortcut, got ahead of us, and was there waiting for us. Now I want to tell you about, we mentioned the Achan, sin of Achan a minute ago. Here, the Valley of Achor. I looked it up. We're not going to go read it. It's more than a whole chapter in Joshua 7. But what happened at Jericho, the story of Jericho, the walls came tumbling down. There was some things in Jericho called the devoted things. And there was like silver and gold and some other things. I don't know what all they were. But they were to treat those things as a certain kind of plunder. And they weren't supposed to mess with that stuff. Okay? But Achan, A-C-H-A-N, and some others decided that didn't apply to them. And they took some of that stuff for their own. Well, the penalty for that is you're going to be destroyed. Well, they found out he did it. And they took him out and stoned him. And then they took the people with him that were involved in it too, and they stoned them. Well, that's called, where they did that is called the Valley of Achor. All right? I don't expect you to remember that. By the time I get home, I will have forgotten it, I'm sure. But it's like Jezreel. It was a point of disgrace. Okay? And what he's saying here is that point of disgrace is going to become a point of restoration. It's going to be called the Valley of Hope. Didn't it say that? Or am I getting ahead? Is that what it said? Yeah. So that Valley of Achor is going to be changed in this restoration process. It's going to be called the Valley of Hope. It's more positive things. Verse 16. This is what I've been telling you all along. This is weird. Yeah, verse 16 and 17. Let me read verse 16 first. Verse 16 says, "In that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master." From Gomer's perspective, she will call Hosea my husband. She's never really called him that before. She was always more concerned with their lovers, but she's going to realize that she's going to call him her husband, not my master. From Israel's perspective, Baal will cease to exist, and there will only be Yahweh. They had been confusing. I told you all this in the very beginning. They had been confusing Yahweh and Baal, even thinking that they were one and the same. They had several different gods under the name of Baal, and they had several different names for Yahweh. El Shaddai, Elohim, some of the others. So over time, they came to seeing those things as the same thing. They just kind of mixed them all together. They thought it was all one and the same. Okay, they were. Then verse 17. So that's what that was talking about. Well, they're going to come around to understanding that. Verse 17 says, "I will remove the names of the Baals from their lips. No longer will their names be invoked." God himself will. Now, this is interesting. I think we've finished. We'll probably stop here after 17. God himself will remove the names of the gods from their lips. That's what it says. Does that mean they will call only God's name? Verse 18 says, yes. I think it was verse 18. We'll see in a minute. But will the act of calling him Lord necessarily be an act of devotion? I've considered all of this. We're in the point of restoration, so the obvious is, yes, calling his name is going to be a point of restoration, and it's going to be authentic and sincere. But what about for us? This has already been done to a certain extent. Traditional idolatry has been removed. You don't see idolatry anywhere in Israel. Okay, they're guilty of many things, but not traditional idolatry. In talking about the covenant, we use the metaphor of marriage. That relationship is based on love, the highest relationship in the family. It's love. But can they call on God with love? Yes, they can, and they will. We will see in verse 19 and 20. Maybe next time. Yes. Yes, they will in verse 19 and 20. Jesus said, though, and we're going to end it up here, Jesus said not everybody who calls his name will be his follower. Let me just read it. Matthew 7. We'll look it up. Matthew 7, verse 21 to 23. Get wrapped up here. Matthew 7, 21 to 23. "Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles? And I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Calling him Lord, Lord does not mean going to church every Sunday. It does not mean doing good deeds all the time. It does not even mean evangelizing, right? Jesus says only those who do his will. This means personal relationship with him, and it means spending time with him, and it means showing love to him. And that is what they are going to have when they go through this restoration. They're going to have true relationship with God, and when they call him Lord, it will mean he is their Lord. Okay, we're going to stop there, so we'll pick it up next week at